let's take it to the next step. Whether it's you're a business owner that like has an idea that you want to build, or you just need to hire somebody, a freelancer, to do something for you. For example, we've had a client that that's a long-term client of ours now, where they were building an API that they're getting quotes between $6,000 and $250,000 for an API. And then Adam worked with them, and he's like, hey, why are we doing this? Why are we building this to begin with? And they're like, I don't know, actually. I didn't really think about that. Yeah. And so
and
I guess,
sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, in case they listen to this, they had a hunch that it may have been extraneous. And I kind of came in and just helped them confirm that, like, hey, based on your business criteria, here's what I'm thinking of. Here's the trade-offs. And it doesn't sound to me like you have to have this. So they were like, that confirms my hunch. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah, because this was a weird case of a very technical, non-technical founder.
Yep.
But I mentioned that example not to the point of him of his information, of blasting out his information, but more of that. Oftentimes, you get into a conversation with an agency or different freelancers, and especially with software, the variance in regards to how big the range can be is massive.
Yeah,
and so I think a big thing that makes non-technical founders really nervous going into these conversations where we hear, we talk to business owners, we're like, I've been needing to find a software developer to help me with this problem for 4 years. I go on Google, I search things, I look at technical jargon that I don't understand, and I get the cold sweats and then push it off for another 3 months. And I think that's a big part of it. So all that to say, how can you best define as a non-technical founder, what does good look like? Like, what does reasonable actually look like, especially considering the value of the problem that I have?
Right. You can't tell, right? Because if you're not an expert, you can't tell. Like if I wanted to hire a cobbler or a financial advisor, that's not my world. That's why I'm hiring you. So you just can't tell. So what do you do? So that opens you up to a lot of risk. So what do? You take the smallest risk you can, which is what I was talking about before. So and the other thing that's not even obvious from those ranges is that those are probably estimates. They're not even quotes.
Right.
So the low one's probably going to be way higher because they're lowballing, and they'll just be like, oh, geez, I didn't realize it was going to be so complicated. Your business, like you told me the wrong thing when we first met. I didn't, you said there was only ever going to be one owner of a forklift, but now I have to change the whole schema because over time, multiple people own the forklift. It's like, oh my God, you're supposed to be the expert and you can't give me a price. So it's like, I would say as the non-technical founder, you're not going to be able to tell. So first, recommendations would be great, getting word of mouth and saying like, this person will not screw you, that kind of thing, of course. But if you're Googling around and getting the cold sweats, that's I think the more common situation. But if you come to someone and you're like, you're not talking about the technology or the minutia of the scope because you can't. Don't bother educating yourself on that. Should it be React or Angular? Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Just be like, the next test I want to run is going to look like this, and it's worth $5,000 to me to run that test. And then you can let whoever you find who's willing to take that step with you, they'll decide on like whether it's Angular or React or Keynote or PowerPoint or whatever. But you do the one thing that you would want to do, one thing that would, if I were interviewing someone now, the thing that I would look for is a lack of dogma. Like, first of all, them insisting that, like, them throwing jargon at you and trying to, like, no, get out of here. What you want is someone who understands, they think like a business owner. You want someone who thinks like a business owner to a certain extent. They don't need to be, like the question I always used to say to somebody, like if I had a client who knew enough to be dangerous, but really didn't know what they were doing in terms of software development, they knew some terms, but they didn't really understand the trade-offs of different things. And they'd be like, hey, could you do this? And I'd be like, yeah, I can, but what's the business case? And you want someone that wants to be on your side in hitting the home run. So like, you got to tell me where the wall is so I know where to aim.
Right.
So anybody that asks you questions about what would a home run look like, or basically what does a success or a failure look like in this next step? So make small steps, create a budget for that's worth to you, and then find someone who's willing to do it for the budget and doesn't say, if they start talking about something like technical debt or scaling or anything like that, close the door. Those people are just gonna, not that those people aren't good at what they do or that it's not important to know how to handle a million concurrent requests every second, but that is not what you need if you're just starting out. If you're just starting out, you probably don't even need any code, as I've said previously. You just need a test. So you want someone who they would be excited about that. So like, oh my God, I'm gonna get $5,000 to make a PowerPoint presentation? Yeah. Like, you want someone who's sort of improvisational. I don't know if you can detect that from talking to someone, but it's the opposite of dogma. It's the opposite of rigid. You want someone who's clever.
Yeah.
And isn't like, an evangelist for mobile first or whatever.
Somebody's kind of got that scrappy, almost entrepreneurial feel, right?
Yes,
like somebody who's like, I'm going to get it done for 5K.
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to get it done. And we're going to know one way or another whether test 2 is upcoming.